Thank you all for coming. This is really, it's an honor to be here, and it really is an honor to be here with you, Richard. I get to return the favor. He had me at Oxford, I think, 5 years ago. So welcome to Los Angeles. So I'm going to, this is going to be very much a conversation, but what I did, I was worried about this. I wasn't worried about tonight. I was worried about tomorrow night. My fear was that Richard and I would have a scintillating conversation tonight, and then tomorrow night try doggedly to recapitulate it word for word, and yet feign spontaneity. And if you know my position online, you know, that doesn't work. So what I did is I went out to all of you asking for questions, and I got thousands. And so I picked among what looked promising. So I can guarantee that the two nights will be reasonably different because different questions will come up. But we won't hew too narrowly to the questions. We'll just have a conversation. But as we come out here, I find that I want to ask you, Richard, about your socks, and I'm not... I'm not sure what the question is, but...
I've just come from Las Vegas, the conference of PsyCon, and one of the things we had was a workshop on cold reading, which is the technique whereby so-called mentalists are supposed to read each other's thoughts, and what they're really doing is just simply looking at the clothes and the general appearance and assessing it. And we had to pair off for this workshop, and I was with a nice young woman, and we sort of sized each other up. And I said to her, I think I'm getting that you come from somewhere in the west of the States. I think maybe not California, maybe a bit further north. And of course, I was simply reading her label, which said she came from Oregon. And then she summed me up, and she said, I think you may have some problem with your eyes. Maybe colorblind. And I'm serious about this. I'm trying to spread a meme for wearing odd socks. There's a kind of tyranny of forcing us to buy socks in pairs. Shoes have chirality. Left shoe and right shoe are not interchangeable. But socks don't. And when you lose one of a pair of socks, you're forced to throw the other one away, which is absurd. So what I want...
Although, honestly, Richard, you just told me a story that suggests that shoes are interchangeable.
Oh, my God, that's right. That's rather an embarrassing story.
Someone is going to find this on the relevant video
I will
on the internet.
Tell the story now. You've let the cat out of the bag. I was doing a television film called Sex, Death, and the Meaning of Life. And in the death episode, we were talking about suicide. And there's a famous suicide spot. It's a bit like San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, where people have famously jumped to their death. And all around this place, Beachy Head, is a very, very high cliff in the south of England. There are rather sad little crosses where people have jumped off. And we were filming the sequence on suicide, and I had to walk very solemnly and slowly and in a melancholy frame of mind past these crosses, and the camera was focused on my feet, walking past these little low crosses. And I felt incredibly uncomfortable. I had this sort of uncanny feeling of being uncomfortable, and I couldn't understand why. And then eventually, it was my feet that were uncomfortable, walking past these crosses. And eventually the director called cut, and we went off, and I took my shoes off because they were so painful. And only then did I realize I put them on the wrong way round. So this is preserved for posterity in close-up.
I want to see that video. Someone find that video.
The weird thing is, none of the television audience ever wrote in to complain about this. So maybe this at least will arouse their attention.
So the first question, Richard, which I thought could provoke some interesting reflection, is why do you both court so much controversy?
Well, we don't, do we? I mean, we don't court it. It pursues us.
Well, I mean, what I've noticed is that there are undoubtedly people who are friends of ours, colleagues of ours, who agree with us down the line, who seem to feel no temptation to pick all of the individual battles we pick. And one doesn't have to be a coward not to want to fight all of these culture war battles, although it helps. But we have friends who are decidedly not cowards, someone like Steve Pinker, he stakes out controversial positions, but he is not in the trenches in quite the same way as we are. And I'm wondering what you think about that. I mean, did you see a choice for yourself? Do you find yourself revisiting this choice periodically?
I think it's a perfectly respectable position to take, that a scientist has better things to do. And I don't take that position, and I think you don't either. I do think it's important to fight the good fight when science, when reason has vocal and powerful and well-financed enemies. And so I'm not sure what particular battles the questioner has in mind when he says we court controversy, but I suppose I believe so strongly in truth, and if I see truth being actively threatened by competing ideologies which actually not only would fight for the opposite of truth, but would indoctrinate children in the opposite of truth, I feel impelled to fight, only verbally. I mean, I don't feel impelled to actually get a rifle or something.
Well, there's time yet.
I can think of two examples. One I mentioned in the reception beforehand. A professor of astronomy somewhere in America who writes papers, mathematical papers in astronomical journals in which his mathematical ideas accept that the universe is 13.8 billion years old, and yet he privately believes it's 6,000 years old. So here is a man who knows his physics, he knows his astronomy, he knows the evidence that the universe is 13 billion years old, and yet so split-brained is he that he actually privately departs from everything in his professional life. Well, surely we have to accept that he I don't know, cannot be reasoned out, but I mean, he already knows the evidence and will not be reasoned out of his foolishness.
Yeah, I didn't say that you could always succeed, but I think, and clearly there are, I have this bias as you do, that if the conversation could just proceed long enough, the ground for science would continually be conquered and it never gets reversed.
Yeah, and it is being and will be.
And you never see this is a unidirectional conquest of territory. So you never see a point about which science was once the authority, but now the best answer is religious.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, but you always see the reverse of that, and
actually most scientists who call themselves religious, if you actually probe them, I mean, they don't believe really stupid things like six-day creation and things. Most of them don't.
Yeah, although I find that Christian scientists, not Christian scientists as in the cult, but scientists who happen to be Christian, believe much more than your average rabbi. This is a way.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, Christianity is, and Muslim scientists no doubt return the favor.
I get the feeling your average rabbi, like your average chaplain of an Oxford college, doesn't actually believe in God at all.
Yeah. I've met that rabbi. So, there's a couple of fun questions here that I just wanted to hear Richard react to. Are there any biological extinctions that you would consider virtuous? For instance, should we eradicate the mosquito? You have 10 seconds to decide.
It would have to be more than one mosquito. There's the malaria mosquito, the yellow fever mosquito.
All mosquitoes.
All mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are unbelievably beautiful creatures.
That's the most irrational thing ever.
The great expert on fleas, And she presented the Department of Zoology in Oxford with a gigantic blown-up photograph of a mosquito, and it was a fantastic piece of work of art.
By a malevolent God.
Yes.
If ever there were proof of God's malevolence, it's got to be the mosquito.
I have no hesitation in killing individual mosquitoes.
But wouldn't you want to be a little more efficient than that with CRISPR or something?
I haven't thought about it before. I think I would not wish to completely extinguish.
Can I throw a little more on the balance? We've had reliably, year after year, 2 million people killed by mosquito-borne illness. Now it's cut down to, I think, 800,000. So we're making progress with bed nets. But
for some reason, I find myself less reluctant to extinguish the malarial parasite that the mosquito bears, but that's probably not very logical. We have extinguished the smallpox virus,
right?
Except for a few lab cultures.
Yes, and then like geniuses, then we tell people how to synthesize it online.
Yeah.
So the flip side of that, of course, is the Jurassic Park question. Should we reboot the T-Rex?
Yes.
If we have,
yes.
That's fantastic.
I thought the Jurassic Park method of doing it was incredibly ingenious, and I loved that. What was not ingenious was the ludicrous injection of, was it chaos theory or one of those 9 days wonder fashionable things.
I don't remember.
But the idea of getting mosquitoes in amber and extracting DNA and reconstructing dinosaurs, that's an amazingly good science fiction idea, if only it were possible. Unfortunately, the DNA is too old for that to happen. If it were, I would definitely wish to see that done.
What could go wrong? Richard seems to want to live in a maximally dangerous world. Filled with mosquitoes and T-Rexes. My concern with AI is that we will just ram past it and we will find ourselves in the presence of intelligent systems that will be so competent, and we will have built them in a way to play upon our intuitions of emotion, and we will obviously build appropriate emotions into them, and they'll be aware of our emotions. And if you finally build robots that are humanoid, that are so good that they're no longer uncanny to us, you get out of what's called the uncanny valley, and they no longer look creepy, now they just look perfect. I think we will lose the intuition that there was any mysterious question here to worry about, and we will just feel, because every intuition that you're in the presence of a sentient other will be played upon, we will just feel we are in the presence of consciousness without ever knowing that that's the case.
So you would accept,
as I am with you now. I mean,
yes, well, quite.
It is. I mean, the fact that we are both the same sort of thing, that we have the same evolutionary history, and that overcomes this notion of solipsism being. I mean, many kind of first-year philosophy students think solipsism, the idea that maybe only I exist, everyone else is just a zombie. Many people think that's somehow the most parsimonious or the most economical view, because, I'm sure I exist. I'm sure I'm having an experience. I'm not sure about all you people. In fact, I can't even see you people.
Have you heard Bertrand Russell's solipsism story? Bertrand Russell got a letter from a lady who said, "Dear Lord Russell, I'm so delighted to hear you are a solipsist. There are so few of us around these days."
Yeah, that shows how untenable the view is. Even a solipsist can't hold it.